In 1998, Nintendo released a piece of music written by Koji Kondo in one of the most beloved Zelda games of all time. But before the game was even officially released, that piece of music was gone, leaving controversy in its place and arguably a far worse result. It happened because Koji Kondo was way too busy working on pure magic to even realize what he had done. He was too busy designing a set of themes for this game that stand out as some of the most atmospheric, ethereal, and sometimes even unsettling themes of the entire franchise. And before we get to the controversy, we have to see what the world of the temples is all about. This is so... I don't even know what you would call those initial... some type of percussion thing? I don't even know, but it's kind of... I'm hearing an F sharp and a B. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. Hear that? We get an E major, going up a half step to F major, back to E major. E major, E to G sharp, and then D to F sharp, but over... over that F major, which... naturally, that is extremely dissonant. It doesn't really work, but notice the way that it's presented here. It doesn't strike me as particularly offensive. It actually sounds kind of angelic in a weird way. Just back and forth from E major to F major. One whole step. It's like there's no melody, there's no chord progression. We have some harmonic spaces that we're using, but it's not a song in the typical sense of a lot of the other themes in this game. It's an atmosphere. And it's angelic, but also kind of creepy. It's like very uncertain. You don't really know where you are. Oh, that sound right there. And it just keeps going. Until we start getting these weird, what are these, voices? You know what this sounds like? This sounds like Herbie Hancock. It sounds like Watermelon Man. Check that out. Wait, let's go back. Hold on, listen to this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly the same, but you gotta wonder if maybe there was an inspiration there. And that just adds... Still from E major. Ooh. We're hanging out on E major. And there we go, F major again. I mean, that's really the gist of it. The whole time our whatever that is going on underneath. I mean, this is such a unique type of composition. It is a composition, but it's like you don't even want to call it a composition because it's not a theme in the same way where it has a melody and a chord progression. And I mean, even in our previous video where we talked about the adaptive video game music of Hyrule Field, which if you haven't watched that video after this one, go check that one out. This is totally different than even that, because that was 8-bar segments that could be tied together in any particular order. But this is just like, there's no beginning, no end, there's no distinctive parts, there's just layers, and the layers just sneak in and out. It is absolutely fascinating, and they sound so different from one another. Okay, so this is the water temple, and a couple of years ago now, I think it was years ago, I lose track, but I did a video asking the question, why does water sound like water? Like, why does, in particular, I was talking about a Mario 64 level, the water level from Mario 64, like, why does that just sound like water? And if you haven't watched that video, I'll link that one too, because it's interesting, but this follows that same pattern, where we get that water feel out of what being underwater kind of sounds like, and we imagine it to be very echoey. And that's, I mean, immediately right out of the gate, we get that sound in our descending, that's G major pentatonic. And then going to, that's an interesting chord, because we go from G major to E flat major, but over E flat major, I think we still get an E natural. Weird little thing, but whatever. Point being, that sound has that real echoey nature to it, and it just sort of sounds like being underwater. But yet again, what? Tritone away? Back to G major. Back to E flat major. Ooh, here we go. Here's a new... Now we're just sort of playing around on... Oh, is that a sitar? That's so cool. But like, again, we don't have melody per se. We don't have like, oh, we're arriving at the new section, here's the melody, don't remember that theme from before? No. It doesn't work like that at all. These are just like layers. Like people sitting, I mean, imagine like sitting in a circle and everybody's got different instruments and you're all just kind of listening. Somebody's playing. And then somebody else is playing. I want to hear that E flat there so bad. But I think it's that. And people just start thinking of different ideas on different instruments. And you're not bound necessarily. I mean, I suppose the only thing of a pulse would be from that. That is kind of setting a tempo, I guess, you know? But it's all subjective. We can hear that as these other layers come in. They just sort of like start playing ideas. Like the sitar is not really following a pulse. It's just so many different things that just come in and out, and the whole thing is just meant to be this ethereal pad. It's just the space for us to exist in as we're in the water temple. What a brilliant compositional idea. And there's so many of these. So much of that improvisational approach that we're talking about with some of these levels and some of the instruments in them, like the ability to just kind of mess around and make choices that sound good. That comes from an understanding of just music in general, music theory, sometimes we refer to it as. And the piano is the gateway. It's the key to unlocking music on a level that you have never understood it before. And that's why I created the Better Piano System. I want to give you the tools that you see me use here on the channel when I talk about music like this and break it down and tell you how it's constructed. I can hear all that stuff because I have that background at the piano, and that is what I want for you. The Better Piano System is basically everything I know about playing the piano and about music, all packaged into one comprehensive program that can help you achieve all of your musical goals that you've ever had. But most importantly, the thing I run into all the time with adult students is they just give up. And the reason they give up is because they feel overwhelmed at having to deal with things that are convoluted and not interesting at first, like scales and theory and all the things that eventually we want to learn. But when you're first starting out, you just want to make beautiful music. And that's the entire philosophy with how I built the Better Piano System. The very first thing that you're going to do is play beautiful music. Within like 30 minutes of the course, we're already piecing together your first full song, all without reading any sheet music and talking about any music theory, because those are things that are very important, but I believe in adding those later on, naturally as they come up, and not as a prerequisite to making beautiful music. Because my goal for you is that you keep coming back and you keep making progress, and the only way that you're going to do that is if you feel like you're actually making progress. So I want you to make beautiful music as fast as humanly possible, and the Better Piano System will help you do that. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description. I don't take sponsors on this channel, and that's because I don't know, that to me feels so much more relevant. It's something that might actually be useful to you rather than me just sitting here talking about a company that neither of us care about. So that was my strategy to say, why don't I not only give you all of the musical knowledge that I can possibly muster and put into a single program, but also something that makes sense. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description down below. It's the best way you can support the channel, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you so much. Let's keep going. This has such a similar vibe, yet in a different harmonic space. Now we're in this G minor space where we're going up to A flat, down to G, down to F. But it's still the same thing where we have these layers. I don't even know what you would consider this particular instrument. Now, in my reading about the Spirit Temple, the idea was that it's has some like Egyptian, ancient feeling influences, right? And that's where we're getting some of this melody line, if you could even call it that. But it doesn't sound like a melody line. It's more like an improvised, just a playful thing of just chewing on some ideas, There's some synth strings in there. It's basically going back and forth between G minor and A flat major. The dissonance. So this one has more of a tempo, right? 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That is so cool. This whole thing is just gonna be this ethereal pad. It's like an improvisational pad, for the melodic instrument to just play over. And then every once in a while, the synth strings give us a little bit of development, sure. But for the most part, we're just chilling. That's it. A flat major to G minor. So cool, and what a drastically different sound than the themes that we've covered in the previous 2 episodes on Ocarina of Time so far. This is a totally different world, and that's exactly what it's supposed to depict. The Spirit Temple is a completely different space than anywhere overworld. It's totally different than Hyrule Field. It's totally different than the when we actually learn the ocarina motifs, and it gets even darker. I mean, check this. This is maybe one of the most unsettling. Whoa, what was that? Hold on. Da, da, da. Over that C. Talk about dissonance. Whoa. We get this driving kind of tribal drum beat. You don't know if you're gonna be some type of ritual sacrifice. You're run to some cannibals somewhere or something like that. Like it just feels so much like what is going on, especially given what we're looking at. Eyes in the wall. And then the fading chromatic, like what even was that? Oh, the sliding vocals are disturbing. And again, aside from that driving beat underneath, everything else seems to be not really based on anything. We get whatever these things are coming out of the ground. Oh, man. Oh, and that vocal melody over top is super dissonant and doesn't seem to be based on like a central tonal harmony. Oh. That is so creepy. That is so creepy. Can you imagine playing this for the first time in 1998? And you're just like, where am I? Like, what is going on? Oh, yeah. That is such a disturbing, unsettling sound. I love it. It's so cool. But obviously, that wasn't even the thing that got the most attention from this whole game, because we have to talk about the Fire Temple. Now, most likely, if you had this game for N64, you probably remember this. Oh, I don't know what you're listening on, but I have a giant subwoofer in front of me, and it's just like shaking the whole building. Again, we get this underlying beat, and this is such a fascinating theme, but it's not the original. Right there. Like, what? What is even going on? Oh, we're using that same pitch sliding method as before, and it just makes everything feel so creepy. All the lows are just kind of flowing up and down. It's so bizarre. But here's the thing. This is not the original. The original was removed before the game was even published. Now, at the beginning, it sounds very similar, but we're quickly going to see what the difference was. And I think this, Koji Kondo's original idea, is a drastically better theme. It is super cool. It's that same build-up, same percussion, same underlying flowy parts with the voices or whatever that is, pitched way down to the bottom there. But then, clearly a recording of voices. That was interesting. Okay, here it comes again. Okay, why was this removed? What's the issue with this? It's gonna continue. Oh, still that same underlying bizarre feel. Okay, this is actually a great story because Koji Kondo didn't even realize, he found this recording of voices on a random collection of, I don't remember what it was, but it was like a CD that had a bunch of I think vocal things on it. This is a Muslim call to prayer. And Nintendo has this blanket policy, or at least they did at the time, of not depicting real world religions in their games, just to avoid people, having issues with it for one reason or another. So Koji Kondo didn't even realize that he had done this. He just thought it sounded awesome. And in this context, it really does. It is such a cool layer in this theme, but it had to go. And Nintendo canned it. But they had already made a certain number of cartridges that had this original programming on them. And I think they just must have said, whatever, we're not going to not sell these, but we'll change it, and then for the rest of the run, we'll do the updated version. So there are rare cartridges kicking around there that have the original, which I think is super cool. So let me know in the comments if you are somebody that has one of these. That's just super cool, and it's rarer than you might think. I just love the idea that Koji Kondo got himself into some controversy and didn't even realize it, and had no intention of doing that. He just made some music that sounded sick and was like, yeah, cool, this will work. And then Nintendo they finally figured it out, and they were like, yeah, no, not gonna work. And unfortunately, I would say that the replacement is not nearly as good. It's still weird and still bizarre, but it's not nearly as good as this original version, which is so creepy in this context, and I love it. And the whole thing is nuts. The temples are such a cool compositional approach by Koji Kondo to create these ethereal, atmospheric soundscapes, and that made these levels so unique. I want to know in the comments, what is your favorite temple theme? And in the next and final episode of our Ocarina of Time series, we are going to talk about the boss themes. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you then.